Hello everybody, welcome to the Achievers podcast. My today's guest, Matthew Pohl, is a manager with around 30 years of experience in managing people. He got great experience as a founder and executive in multiple businesses. As a matter of fact, he at this moment still owns multiple businesses. And the most important part of his business at the moment is running his consulting practice that is known worldwide at the moment. Matthew, thank you very much for being here. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Michael, for inviting me onto it.
Can you please tell our listeners a bit more about yourself and your business experience, please?
Yes, I have been, I live in the United States, grew up in Iowa, which is kind of a Midwest farming area of the U.S., and currently live in Denver, Colorado, which is known for its skiing and mountains. I have 4 children and 6 grandchildren, and have been married for over 35 years now. From a business perspective, I've worked in large companies, quasi-government entities like the Federal Reserve Bank here in the U.S., Arthur Andersen, which was a very large professional services firm. But I've been a business owner for, I guess it's now over 20 years, going on 25 years.
Oh, that's a lot. And what I really like about, well, your presentation is here, that is the fact that you mentioned the family. I am family man myself, and I think that it's very important that someone with such a great business experience remembers that the family is also part of life. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, well, we're talking about how to handle stress and things like that. And it's not that the family doesn't come with stress, but, I've taken a lot of solace and joy out of my marriage and out of my raising my 4 children, and now with the grandbabies. And, coming home when the kids were little at the end of a hard and have them yell, "Daddy's home," and come running to you. At least for a man, I think it's one of those, I don't know, key moments of kind of reinforcing that there's more than just work, that there is home and responsibilities as a father. And in doing so, it's really, I think, in that balance that you can take on more stress, can handle stress, because you can put things into perspective.
Definitely, I believe I know what you mean because, well, like I said, I'm a family man myself, but you said as well about the pressure. So, well, that many years managing people already in your 20s, well, that was a lot. And until now, you already have you have grandchildren. Throughout all those years, how did you deal with all the pressure that you had around your business, around the family issues, about what is happening generally in your life?
Yeah, I don't know that there is necessarily a silver bullet here that I can share, but I would say 2 things that come to my mind that have been kind of foundational for me in managing stress. And the first is the simple act of having a family meal each day. And despite owning multiple businesses, working very long hours throughout my career, we always found time to have dinner together. And so it would be rare, more than once or twice during a month, that we wouldn't have dinner together as a family at home. And so that just small act to me was always kind of a grounding It was important as a father, like I said, with little kids, that my wife didn't have to carry all the burden, that if I was home having dinner with her, then we were doing that together. And that meant that I brought relief because she was staying home with the kids. So family dinner was a key thing. And then I would say the second one is going for walks. Just the act of getting out of the house, of again with kids with all their scooters and bikes or whatever it is when they were little. But even today, I'm in my mid 50s. Just the act of us getting out, walking. We have kind of a 5K walking path around our neighborhood, and we do that several times a week. And it just allows kind of that decompression. For me, that's kind of how I handle stress, is through that conversation with my wife. We would solve problems, we would put things into perspective. Oftentimes just being able to converse, ideas that wouldn't have come up if we just kept on focus on them, somehow would pop into our minds. And so those two acts, family dinners and taking long walks with my wife, I would say more than anything complicated and sophisticated, those simple acts were really what kept my sanity with all the pressure that I've had.
So what I hear from you is something completely opposite to what I hear a lot. It's in order to be successful in a business, I hear all the time, oh, you need to do the work, you need to be there 24/7, you need to work, you need to push, you need to think about the business, you need to act, you need to take each and every opportunity you have to succeed. You need to be well aware of everything that is happening in politics, in economy, everything all the time. That's a lot of data, and especially now, that's a lot to process.
Right.
But here I have a successful person, really successful person, who says the most important part of it, what keeps me sane and let me succeed, is to spend time with my family. That's what you're saying here.
Yeah, and I can explain why. And my wife and I, her name's Dawn, and I talk about this. We've been able to achieve a lot, even though we had 4 kids when we were young. We had our fourth when I turned 30, and 3 or 4 years later, I quit a corporate job to start my first business. So we've taken on a lot. But what we realized is that, as a person, we have so much energy that we have to expend at any given day, any given week. And what we've been able to do is to make sure the home life is strong, that our marriage is strong, that our relationship with our kids is healthy, not perfect, but healthy. And so all that emotional energy that I could be spending trying to repair, and if my marriage was falling apart, all the energy that would take, I haven't had to use that. We haven't had to use that because we put our energy in making sure our marriage was strong, our family was healthy. And so what that allowed to do is to be economical at home. It freed up and makes available a lot of other energy, mind space, focus, intellectual capability on things outside. And so, it's just kind of like taking care of the home front, allows you maybe to have a stronger, when you're in a war, if the home front's solid, you don't have to worry about that. And that's kind of what we've done, is we've said, let's make sure, and in large part, I've seen plenty of businessmen. I'll talk from a male perspective. They get in their 30s and 40s, and they've not invested in their family, in their wife in particular, and that part of their life falls apart in their 40s, and they've got another 40 years of life. And what are they left with? They're left with a failed marriage and this work thing that is not as fulfilling as the home, in my opinion. I think they balance each other, but you're now left with this kind of a shell of a man. And early in our marriage, I told my wife, Dawn, I said, Dawn, you can't let me become a workaholic, because that's what my father did when he owned his own business, and it definitely negatively impacted our family growing up. And so she, like a good wife, she said, yeah, I'll make sure that you're not a workaholic. And she did her job very well. That didn't mean that I didn't work hard. I worked incredible hours, but we always made this space within our lives, not on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, space in our lives where we were a family, where we were a couple. And because of that, that home life didn't become a drain. It actually became a source of energy, and it continues to be that way. So that's why I put it in that order. I think if you focus only on business, you're likely to not succeed at home. And eventually there's a price to pay, and that price is significant and usually has a long-term impact on your productivity.
I'm really, really happy to hear it. I need to admit, before we met, I had no idea that I'm going to hear something like that, but it's so close to my heart
Good.
that it is such a pleasure to listen to your explanation on how to succeed in life and business. They are, however, people who don't succeed. They become overwhelmed, stressed.
Mm-hmm.
If you recognize someone who's, well, let's say, suffering from depression, that's how we can call it, because that's what it leads to, depression, because well, we cannot deal with the difficulty, with the pressure that comes from outside. If you'd recognize something like this in, let's say, your managers, your employees, your business partners, what would you do? What would you recommend them to do then?
Well, I think that's the right context. My overseeing and interacting with people has primarily been in a business setting. So managers, supervisors, employees that report to me, that I employ, and that type of thing. So I think in that context, seeing something that an employee who is struggling in their work performance, is something obviously I've seen. And obviously it's very personal in many ways. Every person is different, but I think for people who struggle in the workplace, it's my role to create a work environment where they can succeed as much as I can control. They've got to own it too. They've got to own their part, but my job is to create an environment where they can be successful. And so I would say my response is more of, what can I do as a business leader to create an environment where they can experience success? And what I have seen is when people do have success at work, they return to the other parts of their lives as a better version of themselves, a more confident, a better skilled, just a nicer person, right? A person that's enjoying life. So I don't try to go outside of the business context when I'm managing somebody at work, because that's really outside of my purview. But a simple rule for me, kind of a principle, is that as a leader, I have to provide three things to my people: structure, clarity, and focus. Structure, clarity, and focus. Most of the time, when people are struggling at work and there's stress involved, because of that, it's because there's too much chaos, there's too much gray, there's too much unknown in the work that they're performing, that they don't have clarity in what they need to do. Now they could be misskilled, like they don't have the skills to do the work, but that's less common actually than from my experience. And so by providing these three things, structure, clarity, and focus, what I do is I remove chaos, as much chaos as possible from their role. And with structure, they see more what they need to do. That brings clarity, so they know what's important, and then they can focus their energy on what I need them to get done, what the organization needs to get done. And essentially what we're doing is a very fundamental part, I think, of human existence, which is to bring order into chaos. You know, our earliest stories of humanity talk about bringing order from a chaotic beginning of some sorts. There's different, mythologies and religious stories around that, but a lot of it has to do with this idea that there is chaos and the creator brings order to that. And I think as humans, we are called to do that, to bring more order into the world. And so I think a lot of stress really boils down to that. I know I'm stressed when there's lots of chaos, when I don't feel like I know what to do, when I can't control things that I feel I should be able to, when I can't control my own success, I feel stress. And so these three things, structure, clarity, and focus, is kind of my little mantra or principles to help create order. And in creating order, that's what I can do as a manager, as a leader, to alleviate stress. That's kind of I wouldn't say generic, but it really is almost a universal way. Obviously, there's these individual things that, can need to be taken care of as well, but those typically require more of an individualized solution.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Well, I can definitely say I've learned a lot and I understood a lot. So thank you very much for that. And well, just one more question.
Sure.
If there was just one single piece of advice to someone who wants to run a business, become a well entrepreneur, what one piece of advice would you give to that person so he or she can stay sane in this competitive business world?
Well, that's a challenging one. To stay sane as an entrepreneur, I didn't know this from the beginning. So some people call me a little bit crazy. So maybe I'm not a good person to ask this from. But for me, over the past several decades, what I've learned, and in part is part of the Rewild Group, this organization that I now lead, is having a roadmap. When you're starting off as an entrepreneur, there's so much you don't know, right? You may know your craft, the thing you're trying to sell or the service you're trying to provide, but there's so much you do not know. And there's so much you don't even know that you don't know, right? So it's just a whole world of ignorance, really. But you have the courage, you step out, which is awesome. And I should tell you that take on risk. Risk is healthy for you to take on. You'll grow as a person more by taking on risk than not. So I'd encourage that. But having a roadmap that says, here's where my business is, this is what it kind of looks like, here's the kind of foundational things I need to take care of, to me is how you stay sane, because otherwise you're just guessing. You're using trial and error for almost everything you're having to learn. Instead, the Rewild Group has this methodology that identifies different stages that businesses go through. And we have low-cost books out on Amazon that allow you to have this roadmap. But specifically for entrepreneurs, having a roadmap, I think, is a key thing, so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel on every aspect of your business. So that would be my encouragement, is get a roadmap. And that can really save you a lot of energy and really speed up and accelerate the growth of your organization.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that advice. I need to admit myself that I need to revise my plan for life, and
Yeah.
well, you just inspired me to do that. So I'm going to work on it over the weekend.
Okay.
I definitely will sit down with my wife, my son, and I believe we're going to do it together to finally decide what I want. And that's
Okay.
the amazing thing about those interviews that I'm taking. I always learn. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for your wisdom today. I do appreciate it a lot, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people as well. And well, if we're talking about the listeners, if they wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I welcome anyone around the globe. I interact with folks all over the world through Rewild Group, and would welcome any kind of outreach. LinkedIn, I'm under Matthew E. Pohl on LinkedIn, and then the Rewild Group website is a good place too. So it's just rewildgroup.com, and there's a contact us page, and if you want to reach out to me individually, just put that note there, and the team will get that message to me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm going to include the links both to the website and your LinkedIn profile in the description of the video. So if, well, video and podcast. So if anyone wanted to contact you, they can just go to the description, click the link and land straight on the website or your profile. Thank you very much again for, well, sharing your experience with us, Matthew. And well, I'll be looking forward to hearing from you again. And well, I'll be definitely watching your post on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks. I appreciate again you having me on, Michael.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye now.